All right, now we're gonna make some saag. So saag is a traditional Indian dish, usually made with spinach, but we're gonna make it with winter greens of, not wintergreen, not like the spruce tree, but with greens that grow in the winter, like chard and kale and collards. So I have a bunch of mostly kale that I'm gonna use that just came out of our garden. And it's a dish that's often served with a homemade cheese called paneer, but I don't make it with that. You're welcome to add like a soft farmer's cheese if you would like cut it up in little cubes, but I'm gonna make it dairy free, and I'll show you how I'm gonna do that. So again, I wanna invite you to cook along with me and to honor this process of cooking, of the nourishment of the earth that's supplying us with the food and the ability to turn it into our tissues, our life force, our energy. So I'm going to place hands on my heart and take 3 deep breaths. Gratitude for this opportunity to create nourishment. All right. So we're going to begin making our saag with the kind of onions, garlic, spice mixture that we'll start with in the pot. So I'm heating my pot up, and I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of ghee in the pot. Again, I just eyeball. Once you cook for a while, you get to know the kind of what measurements look like. All right, so I'm going to get the ghee melting, and then simultaneously I'm going to get some rice cooking. So I'm going to do a cup of rice, and this is just organic basmati rice. Oh, and the ghee is boiling a little bit because there was some water in there in the pot. I just washed it. So I'm gonna get my rice here and then dump it into a strainer and then rinse it. It's a really good idea to rinse rice every time you cook rice. It's just to clean it, to clear off if there's any additives or anything. I don't think there's anything in this rice, but just to clean it, it's a good practice. So gotta rinse the rice in a strainer. Often when you rinse rice, you'll see the water gets a little cloudy when it comes off of the rice. All right, and then I'm gonna put this in a rice cooker. You're welcome just to cook it on the stove too. The proportion would be 1 cup of rice to 2 cups of water. So he's in the pot. I'm going to put in my onions. So I'm using a red onion. You're welcome to use white onion if you would like as well. So I'm using one large onion, and I'm just going to let that start cooking here. Cooking in the ghee. I'm going to put the lid on it just to let that cook a bit, not be too loud there. So coming back to the rice, so I rinsed the rice, put it in my rice cooker bowl here, and then I'm going to put 2 cups of water in with the rice. 1, 2, and I'm going to put a little pinch of salt. a little bit of ghee in with the rice. That's probably a teaspoon of ghee. And then I'm going to put this in our rice cooker that might be off the screen here. Just going to walk over here and put it in our rice cooker. And it's now cooking. So I love having a rice cooker. You can do it in an Instant Pot as well. Sometimes I do that. I love having an Instant Pot too. All the kitchen gadgets are really fun. So we're gonna also put ginger and garlic. So we've got these things, 5 cloves of garlic, and then a bunch of ginger, and turmeric is in the recipe. You can use either powdered or fresh. I'm gonna use some fresh turmeric. Look how beautiful that is, that golden turmeric. The cool thing about this recipe is that we end up blending it in a blender at the very end. And so things can be kind of in bigger chunks than you would really want them if you were just eating them straight, right? Like if we had a big chunk of garlic or a big chunk of ginger, it wouldn't be so ideal. But because all of this gets blended up at the end of the process, it's pretty easy to make. Just throw these things together. They don't need to be really small pieces. So I'm going to show you these onions are cooking in the ghee here. So I'm actually going to turn the heat up just a little bit, get those cooking more. Okay, so we're going to do some ginger. I like to think of it as like a thumb of ginger. And again, choosing what feels like a good amount to you. Are you excited about having lots of ginger, or it's not really your favorite flavor? But this dish is very nice to have lots of flavor from spices in it. So lots of ginger, lots of garlic. We're also going to put in some garam masala, turmeric, some salt, and some chili powder. All of those things create this really yummy flavor. This is a great way, this dish. So I'm just kind of coarsely mincing this ginger here, you can see. But this dish is a great way to eat a lot of greens. If you're trying to eat more greens in your diet and you're like, I don't know how to get that many greens in my body each day, this is a great way to do it. It packs in the greens. So there's our ginger. And then garlic, I'm gonna, you can see our cutting board dyed from turmeric here. And we, in our household, use, this is our onion and garlic board. So we have a specific cutting board set aside just to do onions and garlic on, because, and then other things can be done there too, like turmeric, clearly, it's dyed yellow. But it's because we don't want to be chopping other things like apples on a cutting board that's flavored with onion juice, so that it really keeps those things separate. So that's just a little tip if that's something that bothers you, having the onions and garlic contaminating other things. So another tip here is when the garlic is in its peel, you can set it down flat, smush with the knife. I'm sure that's a technical cooking term. And then it's really easy to peel the peel off. So I already did a couple of these, but I'm just gonna demonstrate. You can easily peel the garlic peel off. I'm just gonna take off the little tip, and then I'm just gonna slice these garlic cloves up in little slices. Again, remember, this is all gonna be pureed together, so it doesn't need to be really well. Oops, there was a bad spot in that garlic. Yeah, so we always want to make sure we're using the best parts of the ingredients. You know, if there's little bad spots, like I just noticed that we're taking those off, or we're using things when they're ripe, not unripe, not overripe, that we're really honoring that plant vitality, that we're welcoming into becoming part of us as we consume the foods that we're going to be eating here, and that this is the best nourishment that we can provide. But we want to bring in some discernment of what's available to us. So I'm also going to cut up this turmeric, so there's a little bad spot there, cutting that out. So turmeric and ginger are usually harvested in the fall, late fall, early winter. And good time if you grow it yourself or live near somebody who grows it, you can stock up on it. You can also, one thing I like to do is to grind up ginger and turmeric together in a food processor to make a pulp. Oh, our camera angle changed here. And there we go. I'm gonna stay here. Not sure what's going on. It won't stay. Let's see. That'll work. So you can grind it up and then put it like a big batch of it, and then put it in ice cube trays in the freezer, and then let it freeze, and then pop out the ice cubes and just put those cubes of ground ginger and turmeric in a plastic bag. And then when you're cooking something like this, or khichdi, or even just wanting to make like a ginger turmeric tea, you have those cubes, and you can just put the cubes in the dish or in the hot water to make tea. It's very handy. So here's our onions. They're nice and browned now. That's what we want. Now we're gonna put in the garlic and the ginger and the turmeric. So just putting all of that into here with the onions. And then I'm also gonna add the other spices. So we have the garam masala, and I'm also gonna get some chili powder. So if you have Indian chili powder, that's great, but actually the other kind of chili powder can work. We can make very multicultural saag here. So I'm gonna put a teaspoon of garam masala. And then I'm going to put some chili powder. I'm going to do a half a teaspoon of chili powder. So again, if you're dealing with pitta imbalance, or you don't like a lot of spice, you can decrease that. Generally, chili powders are not super duper spicy, not like cayenne or something like that. It smells so good. So good. Okay, so now I'm gonna put, I wanna put some salt in here too. I'm gonna do a teaspoon of salt. And we just use this pink mineral salt. We just keep that on our stove. So, okay, we've got salt, got spices, smells super good. If I was to leave it like this, it would burn. So I'm gonna get some water just in my kettle. This is the easy way to deliver it to the stove. I'm gonna put some water in here. And cover the onions and spices in there. And now I'm gonna cut up my greens. So the greens are really like, you can do a lot of them because they'll cook down. Okay, so I have this huge bunch of greens here harvested from our garden. I'm just gonna start chopping them up. This is like 4 different kinds of kale. Okay, so I'm gonna pause here and open up our pot here that has the water in the bottom. And I'm just gonna load this in here. Filling up. Get these greens going. I'm gonna chop some more. Let's see how. Might find a little other plant material in here. Like an oak seed. Okay, so we've got that starting to go. So these greens will cook down quite a bit as they're in here. And again, the more local, organic, seasonal you can be with the greens. You could make this with frozen greens if you needed to, and maybe you froze some from the summer or the fall. That can work as well. So I'm gonna let this cook down a bit, and then we'll put more in. And let it cook and cook and cook. Phases of cooking here. So these greens are getting steamed. We've got about 20 minutes left on the rice. So this basically gets cooked down, and then we put it in the blender and blend it up with some yogurt. And I use, here I can show you what I use. It's this Kite Hill unsweetened dairy-free almond milk yogurt. And this is a great replacement for sour cream too. It's very creamy, and it has the sourness of yogurt without feeling too much like a sweet cream replacement. So it's pretty yummy. This is also an easy dish to freeze. You can do, I wouldn't freeze it with the rice, however, but if you just do containers of the SOG and then thaw them whenever you want an easy meal, that can be really, really fabulous. This is a great thing to do if you have an overabundance of greens and don't know what to do with them. So you can see they're cooking down. See, there's more space in the pot. Excellent. And those onions are nice and soft. It smells so good. I love how this smells. Our kids really like this dish too, which is fabulous for getting lots of greens in them. Okay, so I'm gonna cut up the rest of these here. And just tear up these side pieces that didn't get chopped. Okay, so now I'm gonna put them in here. Let me see if I can show you what this looks like. Right now, it's like this bright green greens and the purple onions. It's beautiful. These are getting cooked down. So now we're gonna load the pot up again. So again, this isn't really an exact measurement, but it's like a lot of greens, right? Like get a few bunches of greens and put them in here. Okay, so I'm gonna let that cook down. And I use a Vitamix blender, which I highly recommend just because they're super strong and really wonderful. And that's what we'll use once these greens cook down. We'll put everything in the Vitamix. I'm gonna stir this up so the new greens get mixed in with the already cooked greens. So I don't recommend doing this with raw. That is crossing somebody's mind. Especially in the cold weather months, that if you're thinking, oh, I could just put it all in the blender and make it that way. It is, so raw greens are very high in Vata aggravating components. So the bitter and astringent tastes are Vata elevating. And we can handle those during the cold weather if we heat them and combine them with beneficial fat and digestive spices. So making sure that we cook the greens is really, really important, especially if you are Vata or Kapha predominant. So generally Pitta predominant folks can handle a little more raw or things that require more digestive energy, more Agni, and don't need as much of that spice, the support from the spices in the digestion, whereas Vata and Kaphas do. We need that support from the spices. So we'll let this cook. Oh, it's looking pretty good. So it's amazing, like we just filled this pot twice with greens and then it cooks down to half of the pot. So again, a really great way to get greens into your diet. So you can let this cook for a while or turn it off at this point. I'll show you what this looks like. Here's our cooked greens and onions. So now I'm gonna load this all into the Vitamix. And I'm just gonna use tongs to start with. There's a bunch of liquid we'll put in here too, but just get the majority. Can you see? Yep. Just loading it in here. Pouring the liquid in. And then I'll use a spatula, scrape it out here. So we have it all in here, and now I'm gonna put some of this yogurt in. So this is just gonna make it like creamier, make it feel like there's dairy in this soup without there needing to be actual dairy. So I just put like three big dollops. All right. So I'm gonna come back here to my Vitamix, put the lid on, nice and tight. It's gonna make a loud noise if you wanna cover your ears. So I'm grinding it up until it's just totally pureed. And you can see here, ooh, steamy, that it's this beautiful green color. Oh, it smells so good. And now this, once the rice is done in about 15 minutes, we'll put over the rice. And if you want to sprinkle some cheese or some cashew cheese or whatever you have, on top of that and have that with the rice and the sag, you can do that as well. You might want a little dollop of the yogurt on top. You can also sprinkle in some cilantro. So enjoy your sag and getting your greens. Did your good job for today, getting your greens in. All right, enjoy.